This is my mother, Dawn Pierce. She died when I was only 3 years old. She struggled most of her life with a sickness called alcoholism, a disease that she passed on to me at birth. Her story, my story, our story.
She was a beautiful, talented young woman. She got straight A's. She had a beautiful voice. She had Olympic cutoff times in swimming. She had her whole life, but she couldn't knock the use of the alcohol. And so what would have been one of the brightest lights around eventually became a person lying in a casket. Her brothers knew that she had started using, but they thought she was experimenting. They did not understand how serious her use was and how quickly she went to it. And so by the time we figured out that she was using, she was 13 years old. And from 13 to 18, every time we could get our hands on her, because she kept taking off, she would be in a treatment center until she could figure out how to run again, because she couldn't stand being away from the alcohol and drugs that long. At 18, she gave birth to Janae's older brother, Justin. He was in the foster care system for a while because she would spend the money for formula on her drugs and alcohol and do water with him. She'd want to go off on a binge, so she'd lock him in a bedroom and be gone for 3 or 4 days and leave him alone in his dirty diapers and everything. She'd hand him to a stranger and say, "Will you watch my baby a minute? I need to go get some cigarettes." Her relationships were always ones that were abusive, because those are the people that would give her the drugs and alcohol, and that's how she could manage it. The guy she was with, the last guy she was with, was a professional boxer. So every time he would decide that he was going to get drunk too with her, then he would beat her up. And so her doctor finally committed her, and she went on run. And she was living in doorways and under bushes. She'd been doing that off and on for years. And she tried to get to a phone to phone Aunt Catherine to see if Catherine would phone me and find a place for her to stay that was warm for the night, because she was so cold. So Janae was our miracle baby. When Janae was born, they had already told Dawn that there were real problems with her. They thought she was going to have spina bifida and a few other of the serious things. And we all went and saw our spiritual leader, Elmer, running. And he said, no, she's going to be okay. And different elders came up and said, "Carol, don't worry, just pray. She's going to be okay." Janae came home from the hospital with me. Every time we got our hands on Dawn, and Dawn would say, "Commit me, lock me up. I don't want my baby to hurt." But she couldn't do it. She sundanced 2 years, trying to get her life together. She couldn't do it. She attended church regularly. She read her Bibles constantly, thinking that would help. Nothing was strong enough to help her fight the alcohol.
The first time I started using was at the age of 18 and a half. I was with my ex-boyfriend at that time, and he got me hooked on drugs and alcohol and doing some other bad stuff along with it. When I drank, it felt good, but then again, I didn't feel so cool about myself. It was just chaotic. I had to be hospitalized for 72 hours, depending. I was in the behavioral unit, and it wasn't me, but I did it anyway. I just sit there and look outside at the window and just stay there all day. I wasn't making the right choices at that time. I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to be loved.
She goes with these turkeys who tell her all sorts of things, and I call them turkeys. They're really probably nice people, but they have serious problems. To me, they're turkeys because they're messing with my lovely daughter. And I say daughter because I'm her grandma, Mommy. She got into so many dangerous situations. I have in my possession somewhere close to 100 blue cards from the Minneapolis and other police departments. Janae works really hard at this, but the problem is when you're fetal alcohol, you don't have the luxury of experimenting because all the research shows you go right, when you start using, right to where your mother was in her addiction at the time she gave birth. Her brother didn't believe me when I told him that. And when he went up to college, he went somewhere and they were drinking and he started drinking a vodka. He told me later on when he started trying to maintain his sobriety, he says, you know, that first time I had to drink a full quart of vodka before I could even feel the effect. I said, yes, that's where your mother was. So Janae uses more. She uses until she doesn't have it when she's gone. She puts herself in dangerous situations. She's been beaten. She's been gang raped. She's been raped. She's had her identity stolen already. She was off on a binge. At the time, her godfather, who she adored, collapsed and died. George Spears was her godfather. And we were just really fortunate. The police were called to the place she was because of a disturbance. And they remembered me and her, and they got her up to the police station, and she called me to come get her.
I guess my grandma would say I'm a lot like my mom, but I am learning. I know I have to change, or I'll end up dead. I would like to thank the Creator for a second chance and for my family that looks after me.
It's my sister. I love her very much.
Miigwech.